Just a couple quick points because I only have limited amounts of time. I think way too often on conference evaluation, you look at the travel and you look at the hotel and you look at all of that. You don't count the opportunity cost of that employee. And I am very curious about whether the administration or whether you as efficiency experts have looked at these conferences from the standpoint of the opportunity cost of the employee. If the employee is traveling, obviously sitting in the chair now for 2 days at a conference, comes back, he or she obviously is not doing what they typically would be doing, but yet we never talk about that. And I'm curious about whether in either agency you've begun a discussion about that as part of the evaluation of the necessity of the conference.
The issue you raise about opportunity costs is an important one. And I think the discussion starts with asking whether the conference itself will advance that individual's work and mission. So how can the conference directly impact the work that they're trying to do? It might be different work that they're doing at their desk, but how can they do that? I think the other piece that folks have looked at in doing this is thinking about not just the time that they're at the conference, but the travel to the conference. As someone who spent a great deal of her former life on an airplane, I think we can all attest to the fact that it is hard to be as productive sitting on a plane than it is sitting at your desk. And so what we've seen agencies do is think more carefully about planning of conferences. Can they have things back to back so you lose less time in travel? Can you do things in a way so you cut off an additional trip? Can you think about the timing of the start and end so you get people so they don't have to stay that extra night? They get back that night and get back to their desk in the morning. So those things I think help as well.
Yeah, I think what I'm really asking is there a systematic way, the same way you would evaluate other costs, that you include the cost of the employee's time in your evaluation as a matter of routine? Is that something you do right now?
I'm not sure how agencies specifically do it. To me, the challenge in doing that is I want to start with the assumption that when the employee is at the conference, they are doing their work, just a different aspect of their work. Otherwise, they shouldn't be at the conference, right? So I think, how do you think about that trade-off?
But in terms of evaluating the cost of the training, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, I guess I put you off on the wrong track when I talked about opportunity costs, but I'm talking about the fact that these conferences cost more than travel and hotels and meals. They cost time, and time is probably the most expensive piece of this. And so understand that that's an investment taxpayers make in that conference, and so we have to evaluate the total cost in order to completely understand the value that we're getting. And I raised that question and would be curious about follow-up because I don't have a whole lot of time here. I share Dr. Coburn's concern about backsliding. If you don't have a true cultural change, if you don't have a true visceral kind of, nope, we are not going to do that unless it's absolutely essential, then you need a bigger hammer than an executive order or a bigger hammer than an IG report that may get finalized, you know, 2 years after you've left your executive position. And so, I mean, I am curious about a response to whether you would support legislation that would reinforce the work that you've done already in your administrative positions. And that's for either one of you.
We believe that we are succeeding in making the cultural change that you require. When you see the reductions in costs, in some cases of over 50, 60, the 80% that Administrator Tanglerini talked about, that comes, and we've seen the way that there's new guidelines to think about costs, including, I think, your idea about how you think about opportunity costs is an important element. We think those elements are driving the cultural change we need, and we think we continue to make progress, and we believe that the actions we've taken will be sustained. These orders would need to be rescinded. We think we've put in place something that can last beyond the current times.
I think efforts such as our Government Travel Advisory Council, in which we've brought agencies and many layers of many types of government, state, local, federal, as well as private sector providers of these services, allow us then to feed back into things like the federal travel regulation, which have for agencies the force and effect of law, the ability to have more flexible kind of ability to respond to maybe the evolving nature of what conferences and travel look like. I think, as we have, certainly during my tenure, and I know through my conversations with Deputy Director Kober, we're very interested and committed to working with this committee so that we leave a better institution than either of us found when we came here, because that's our commitment.
My final question is, there is always an assumption in what we say that it's better to be in the room with people. But yet, there doesn't seem to be a lot of science behind that. It's just our kind of what we believe as human beings, that you and I can accomplish more face-to-face than we could teleconferencing. But I'm not sure that that's true. And I think your point about some people can be in the room that otherwise couldn't be in the room, so the experience may be more valuable. I would be curious about any follow-up that you would have in terms of studies that have been done about the relative merits of both ways of interacting, because we see this, if we took all this money that I think was wasted on conferences and invested it in technology, think about how much further we'd be ahead. I mean, we might even be able to put this kind of technology in very small places and be able to manage it. And so I'm curious and would appreciate any follow-up that you have or any studies that you know of that do, in fact, analyze the two experiences.
I think the issue you're raising is a very important one, and I think that's one where we will continue to monitor the research. I do believe from my personal experience that this has continued to evolve. Video conferencing, for example, is so much more effective today and easy to accomplish at small cost. It used to be highly expensive to install a special video conference room, and so the cost effectiveness versus travel didn't work. But today, when you can use your phone, your tablet, your laptop to do video conferencing, it's actually quite inexpensive and increasingly reliable. So I think those studies are still emerging. One of our roles is to continue to look at that. It's the issue I raised at the beginning about measuring effectiveness. It can be more effective for some things than others because you get more people there. You're not spending time traveling to and fro. So the issues about how we take advantage of the changes in technology is something that's at the forefront of our attention, and we'll be happy to work with you as we learn more about effectiveness and try and see what studies are being done to apply those in the federal government.
And I just want to thank Senator Tester.